Hey, what's up, everybody? Rob Gill here at Epic, here, Red Bank, New Jersey. You know, what's always interesting to me is everybody has some kind of opinion. And in general terms, a lot of people make decisions based on opinions. And the question is, for today at least, is infinite banking system a scam? Probably about 15 or 20 years ago, I read a book, Become Your Own Banker, or Bank on Yourself, that was written by Nelson Nash. It was a phenomenal book. And what I loved about that book was the fact that you can control your outcome. You would pay interest to yourself, essentially, instead of paying interest to credit cards, or if you were going to finance a car, to the banks on the car, or the bank that you were financing. For example, if you bought a Honda, or if you bought a Ford, you would pay over 5 years, interest on financing the cost of that vehicle. And in that book, it talked a lot about being able to pay yourself first, which I think is phenomenal, because if you're going to be able to finance your own debt, in that space, you begin to recover money that would otherwise go to a bank who would be earning interest on the money that you pay them. So from a standpoint of bank on yourself, if you follow the program A through Z, and not just kind of shortcut it or just follow B, D, and F, if you do that, it's been our experience, following a path, following a structure, and being disciplined to that, in the end, you will prevail, especially as you begin to recover not only the interest payments, but the lost opportunity cost on those interest payments. You know, one of the challenges when it comes to bank on yourself or infinite banking, and sometimes it does get a bad name, and that's because, number one, you're probably with a team that has not given you the proper product that sits and fits with the philosophy of becoming your own bank. And if you begin to make the mistake of having the wrong team, it's almost like you're off course. If you want to go to California and you're in New Jersey, you got to go west, but if you're going east, you won't get there, right? So in the end, you want to make sure that you're with the right team that gives the proper education on the specific insurance products that are tied to becoming your own bank and how to bank on yourself. And that's where you really have to understand the difference between a whole life product as well as an indexed universal life product. There's major differences in that space. And in those decisions that you make really is going to decide how big or how small your outcome is going to be based on those philosophical differences. You know, what's interesting, when you understand the difference between whole life and index universal life, and let me start with an IUL first, which is index universal life. You have something called net amount of risk, which is your cash value versus your death benefit. And keep in mind that in an IUL, every year, the cost of insurance increases. So as you begin to leverage or borrow from an IUL, that's going to increase the net amount at risk. Remember, the difference between cash value and death benefit. Now, if I look on the other side of the equation and I look at whole life, especially if you have non-direct recognition, as you begin to leverage your cash value and borrow from it for other opportunities, it's still earning a rate of return inside that policy. And that's where Become Your Own Bank becomes so powerful, because if you really understand the differences, not to say that an IUL doesn't have its proper place, because it does when you diversify with whole life, but once you understand the differences and the distinctions, those small little understandings create massive wealth later on in your overall planning process. And once again, it's always important to make sure that you have the proper team in place for all of the financial decisions that you're making: trust officer, estate attorney, accountant, life insurance agent, wealth manager. In this space where you understand life insurance and become your own bank and using those strategies, if you want to hear more content about that, please check out the video above that specifically talks about whole life and can take you to that next action step.